and Happy New Year! My name is Carrie and this is Spines and Spoilers. Today I want to talk about the books that I read in December of 2021 and officially get that year behind me as quickly as possible. Before I get started, I want to talk about what I am drinking and what I am reading. I am drinking a peppermint mocha from Starbucks because my boyfriend is sweet and just randomly brought it by for me because he knows me and he loves me. So thank you, Kyle. I'm used to recording so that the camera's over there, so I keep on looking away from the camera. Sorry about that. I am reading Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. It's an arc that's being provided to me by NetGalley. I don't honestly know a lot about it. I'm trying to go in as blind as possible, but I'm about 2 or 3 chapters in, and it's really good so far. It seems to be a book that people are pretty hyped up about. Now, moving on to my December wrap-up, the first book is The House of the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I was really excited for this book because I'd heard so many good things about it, and I thought it was really sweet until I found out that it was based on the 60s scoop, and that really just ruined everything for me, basically. I ended up having to DNF it. I was really disappointed when I found that out. So unfortunately, I don't really have a rating for this one, other than maybe like a 1 or 2 star because I DNF'd it. I really don't like books that kind of capitalize on tragic events, and there's so much to unpack there. But yeah, so that's a no from me. The next book was Sadie by Courtney Summers. It is a book that circulates around an individual whose sister was murdered, and she is trying to track down the person who murdered her sister. No one knows where she is, though, and she's basically gone missing, and there is a news program that is following her progress along the way, but it is always like several steps behind her. It's told from dual perspectives, which I really enjoyed. I think that it helped add a lot to the story in itself. I think I ended up giving it about a 3.5 or a 4, and only that low because of the fact that I felt like the ending was anticlimactic. I really wanted a better ending there, and also kind of wanted it to be fleshed out a little bit more. Overall, a really good book though, and I totally see why there was so much hype surrounding it. This next book was a big disappointment, and I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for it, but it is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I was pretty hyped up for it, and then once I started reading it, it's fine. There was never a moment where it pulled me in, you know, like, there's nothing problematic about it. It's not bad. It's just fine. And I've heard people like rant and rave about how it's just this amazing book, and then I read it and it's just like, yeah, it's okay. And I really loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is hard to say for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, I really loved that book, and I was expecting big things, but maybe this is one of those situations where the author is actually kind of a one-hit wonder. We'll have to see. Either way, I really loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This one was just fine. I gave it a 3. The next book was a reread. It's Little Women by Louise May Alcott. I loved it just as much as I did before. This is actually one of my favorite books. I don't have many favorite books that are like classics, because I think a lot of the classics are overrated because they're all basically written by rich older white men. That's a whole discussion unto itself. But this is one of my favorites. I'm going to start trying to reread it every year around Christmas, I think, because before this, it had been like the 6th grade since I read it, and I couldn't remember much about it. And then I reread it and was like, yep, still love this. And yeah, I want to keep reading it each year around Christmas because it kind of has that vibe. For anyone who has kind of been living under a rock and has not read or seen Little Women, it is something that I would recommend. It's kind of a coming-of-age story to an extent, but it circulates around 4 girls instead of just 1 person. Next book is Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. This book is set in the same universe as The Hate U Give, but it's not directly connected. It circulates around an individual who finds out that he is a father. The catch is that he is a teenager, and he has to figure out how he is going to kind of raise this baby because he ends up being the sole provider for it for a while. So yeah, that is a interesting story, which is really wholesome at times, and I really enjoyed it. I think I gave it about a 4 or a 4.5. Ultimately, though, I enjoy everything that Angie Thomas has done so far. Um, I think I've pretty much read everything that she's done, but maybe she'll come up with something this year. We'll have to see. Sorry if I seem out of it. I had basically pre-filmed all of the stuff that came out in December, which was a whole task in itself. So I haven't filmed in like 2 or 3 weeks probably. It's been a while. Before that, I was just editing. So yeah, I'm having to get back into the swing of things. Number 6 is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is an autobiography of sorts, which was written by the individual who was attacked by Brock Turner. She wanted to kind of give her perspective on the entire thing, and for the world to know her name, because in situations like this, too often we know the names of the attackers, particularly in cases where it's like murder and rape and stuff like that. We always know the names of the perpetrators, but never of the victims. Like, think right now, can you name one of the victims of Ted Bundy? Like, go ahead. Some of you might be able to, but you're probably a little obsessed with it. Personally, off the top of my head, I can't think of one, but I know Ted Bundy's name, and I don't think that's right, and I think it's something that we need to start thinking about in the future. But yes, Chanel Miller was the victim of Brock Turner, and she wants to kind of let people know how things transpired from her end of things. It was an extremely enlightening read, and I think it's one that everyone needs to read. I felt wrong rating it because it is an autobiography and it is so vulnerable. But if I have to give it a rating, I guess I'll give it 5 stars. Otherwise, though, I would just leave it unrated because, yeah, it's a very sensitive topic. Number 7 was one that I really enjoyed. It's Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Von Pelt. It's just a delightful little story that circulates around an octopus as one of the main characters and the caretaker of the aquarium that he lives in. There are a couple of side characters as well, and it kind of switches back and forth between perspectives. And my favorite chapters were the ones that were from the point of view of the octopus. I really loved the entire thing. Even the side stories. That being said, the octopus chapters are my favorite, and I probably would have read an entire book from his perspective. So who knows, maybe we'll get something like that in the future. I just know, I think I gave this one 5 stars. I'm pretty sure this was one of my late bloomers, and I really enjoyed it. I would totally recommend it. It was an arc from NetGalley, and it really surprised me. So. Number 8 is the only one that I have a physical copy of. That is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by Leigh Bardugo. Let me see if I can get it to where the light is not hitting it wrong. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. I think I read it at the very beginning of December. It had to have been. But it circulated around an individual who is able to see ghosts and a secret organization at Yale who needs her powers in order to do secret ceremonies and stuff like that, secret rituals. And it's a whole thing. It gets very dark in some places, but I thought it was really interesting. I loved the dark academia aspects of it in particular. I've heard that it's getting a sequel, and I'm pretty excited about it because it seems like it's going to have that let's go to hell and like save someone type thing, and I love that trope. So but yeah, this one was really good. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, maybe 4 or 4.5, I'm not sure. But either way, I really enjoyed it. I would read it again, and I'm really looking forward to the sequel. So far, everything that I've read by Leigh Bardugo has been a win, so this next book is one that we've all heard of in some form or another, possibly seen or read. I don't know. It's The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is another one that I try to read every year. I missed out on 2020 because there was a lot of stuff going on. Lots of drama and mental illness and other things going on. But yeah, I was able to read it this year. Enjoyed it as much as I usually do. I'm not going to say that you have to read it because I know that Charles Dickens is not for everybody. I don't like any of the rest of his work, I'm not gonna lie. I've tried giving it a chance so many times, but I can't. My brain doesn't want it. It's like trying to read Moby Dick for me. Like, I can't. Yeah, The Christmas Carol is different. I really enjoy The Christmas Carol. It's not a super long story. It's one that you can read maybe in a couple of hours, I think. Well, maybe not that short, but it's pretty short. I enjoyed it either way. Also, I'm pretty sure you can see, I don't know if you can tell, but I put up some Christmas lights on my bookcase. I'm considering keeping them. I don't know. I'll have to actually figure out a better way to position them because they're a little bit awkward right now. This next one is another one that we all know, if not love. It is The Night Before Christmas by Clement C. Moore. I actually didn't know the author's name until very recently. It's another one that I tried to read every Christmas. It's very short, it's very sweet. And I used to do it with my stepdaughter every once in a while, but now, you know, she's 14, about to be 15, so I just do it on my own. Yeah, it's a really wholesome book. You all know what it is. About the night before Christmas. And if you're looking to start like a Christmas tradition, I think that's a fun one. I'm not telling you how to live your life. That's just what I do personally. Okay, so this next one might get me some hate and maybe looked down on. I don't care. I started to get into a bit of a slump in the middle of the month. I think because I was trying to read The Diviners, which I didn't even put that on this list because I DNF'd it. But yeah, I ended up getting into a bit of a slump and decided that I wanted to pick up something light because usually something that doesn't have a lot of substance, no offense to the authors, kind of pulls me out of a reading slump. That's basically what I did with the selection as well. No offense, Kira, Cass. But yeah, I enjoyed those and they helped me get through a hard time. This one did the same. It pulled me back into reading. I have no hate at all for this book or the people who read this book, especially since I am now a person who has read this book. It actually resulted in me downloading others in a similar vein, but that didn't work out as well. I did enjoy this one though. It's called The Christmas Pact. It is by Vi Keeland and Penelope Ward. Actually, I think there was more than one. Andy Arndt, I believe, is the other one. So there are 3 authors, I believe. Comments down below if you know what's going on there. But it's basically the typical, you know, will you pretend to be my boyfriend for Christmas? Will you pretend to be my girlfriend for this event type thing, you know, and the two ending up falling in love. So, I mean, that's about the extent of it. It's fluff, and it was very sweet. I enjoyed it. It was very Christmassy, and it was what I needed at the time. So, thank you to all 3 of the authors who wrote The Christmas Pact. I appreciate it. This is another one of those where I don't entirely feel comfortable rating it because it's not something that I would typically read. So I feel like I have a skewed perspective a little bit. Because I think to the people who typically read these books for what they are and don't just need to use them to pull them out of reading slumps is probably a lot better than that. I've heard a lot of good things about this book, so I don't want to be unfair to it. I'm just gonna leave it unrated. Number 12 is Pumpkin by Julie Murphy. This circulates around a teenage boy who lives in Texas. He is having a hard time because he is gay, living in Texas, and he's not closeted, but he's kind of like retracting into himself to try not to get bullied. And he ends up just kind of having enough, and when he ends up kind of going through a breakup and records a video of him doing drag. Well, this just kind of blows up, and he kind of has to decide whether he wants to commit to it or whether he kind of wants to stay in the shadows. He is also nominated as prom queen as a joke, and then one of his friends is nominated as prom king as a joke, who is a female. So Yeah, they end up deciding, you know what, screw it. We don't even care. We're just gonna do this anyway, and we're gonna rock it. We don't even care. The 13th and last book that I read in December is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. The premise of this book is basically that the main character does not want to live anymore. I'll go ahead and say that there is a trigger warning for suicide because she attempts it, but she is taken instead to this, I'll call it a realm, I guess, of that is just a giant library, and the person in charge is her old school librarian. She's told that the books in the library are all filled with other potential pasts of her life. Like, if she had made different choices in her life, this is how things would have turned out. And she's told to go through each of them, because if she genuinely didn't have any desire to live anymore, she wouldn't still be there. So she goes on a journey going through each of these books, trying to see what would have happened if she'd become, you know, an athlete or a rock star. Just all these possibilities that her life was leading up to at one point or another, but they never really came to fruition. And I really appreciated it. I can see why people might have an issue with it. I think the message kind of is that the future is malleable and we can always change to some extent. I do think that it kind of puts depression and things like that on the back burner, because this person was obviously not mentally well off. They never discuss, oh, well, maybe you should go see a therapist, or maybe start some medication, something like that. I didn't appreciate that. I liked several aspects of the story, but that part in particular I did not enjoy. I would have liked more time to have been devoted on the mental health aspect of it all and how she is going to actually, you know, continue on with her life. But that's it. That is the end of my December wrap-up. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, more than you know. Please stay safe out there. I know that it started, you know, snowing and raining a lot, at least it has in my neck of the woods. And I want everyone to stay as safe as they can, including wearing your masks. Please do that. It's still an issue. Things haven't gone away magically. Now that I'm done lecturing you, though, don't forget to like and share and subscribe. And most importantly, and this is key, I need you to listen. Are you listening? Okay. I need you to love yourself. All right, bye.